Hey guys, this is just going to be a short little tutorial segment. I felt after I did the second part of my tutorial series that I really didn't emphasize specific pitch bend types well enough. Sure, I did a UST, but it wasn't a type I felt very well suited to helping teach or anything. And probably in the end, my style may be influencing people in the wrong direction. My style I've developed after a long time of deciding what I think suits me. And in the end, actually, I kind of pitch bend like a crazy woman sometimes. So I just wanted to go through and show the very specific types of pitch bends, how you can accomplish specific things with different kinds of pitch bends. So I set up a really basic UST thing here. Went ahead and added a vibrato and a slight envelop out. So here's what it just sounds like, plain old. And now we're going to go over some pitch bends. I'm just going to try and think of all the types I could think of. And we'll go over those. Okay, just notice though, I'm zoomed in so you can see it better. You generally probably wouldn't be that zoomed in. So, let's go over a type of pitch bend I call the platform. Sometimes you have notes that go up and down on one another, like you don't sometimes want to make two notes separate things. So just do this formation. Have 4 pitch bends, one that forms a little platform on the previous note or next note or whatever. And when deciding how long they should be, actually make sure it stands with actual note lengths. Like with how this is now, that's about 240 in length of a pitch bend. You could shorten it to make it 1/4. Because in the end, even if it's changing notes, that was still a previous note that had an established note length. So something like this would sound like that. Now, there are a couple of variations you could do on this when you combine it with other pitch bend types, little air quotes. Like one of my favorite methods of pitch bending is an altered platform type, I could call it, where you do a little bit of a V or an N shape. Yeah, N shape sounds better. While certainly the platform has its places, I like the N shape because I feel like it makes it a little more vibrant sounding sometimes. A little more actiony, and I tend to cover more actiony songs. So there we have that pitch bend. A simple one you could easily figure out is just dragging around the lines. That creates a slide. So if you ever need to do a slide, that helps. Though one way to even make that better is by right-clicking and changing the pitch bend type. If you want it to descend in a different pattern or ascend in a different pattern, it could actually influence it pretty well. I really like the J and R type curves. I don't really use straight line linear curves. But to each his own. I guess next what I should go over real fast is if you ever listen to a song and it's really auto-tuney, and sometimes there are UTAU USTs and covers that sound auto-tuney without using auto-tune or any other pitch correcting software. That's because you can easily replicate such a tone with pitch bends. When there's a red line present, that means it's making a realistic curve along that line. However, if you pull them over, and yes, you can actually just use 2 points with a previous note. If there is no red line present, that means it will suddenly jump up to that pitch. And that's what auto-tune essentially does. Instead of allowing that curve, it creates a very robotic sounding jump. So that sounds like this. And you can still make stuff sound dramatic when using auto-tuney pitch bends. Like, for instance, you could do this. It's a blend. You still get that auto-tune thing, but you also get a slide in. And you could do successional auto-tuney pitch bends. Like, here, let me see how this turns out. Well, that sounds really goofy, but you get the idea. You could make a series of auto-tuney sounding pitch bends, and you could do it with a lot of things. Those are very useful with any kind of electronic song where you need them. And also, you can just use it in the section between notes if you feel like it, instead of having to be within the next note. So aside from auto-tuney pitch bends, let's go to what I like to call sharp curves, I guess you could call them. Spikes, sometimes I refer to them. When this spike goes up, there will be a sharp sound to the top of the note. It doesn't sound pleasant in all cases. And you can do the opposite. You can also sort of combine them to make something nice sounding. This is also sort of an alteration of the platform pitch bend. Everything's almost an alteration of that, because the goal of that is to make a note change to the next standard note. This is just doing it in a very dramatic fashion. And you can do improvements on that, like one formation I really like to do is something like this. So I have the dramatic sharp spike of it, but it still becomes a platform pitch bend. And then when you stay within the area of the single note, like this gray bar here, it makes the note kind of go sharp and flat, which won't sound pleasant if you don't mean to do it, but in certain ways, if you go up or down and like that, it can create a sort of natural sounding unsteadiness. It's hard to describe unless you've experimented with it, but I really like pulling it off at times. So like in this case, it should like very slowly go up. And let me change this curve to a J type. Scoot that in a little bit. These pitch bends sound really gross over here. And then one thing I also like doing on the other side of that is, give me a sec to set this up. Normally it's easier to set up because of how notes are placed. I do this dramatic N-ish pitch bend type, and then I have a small bump up at the end, and that can sound really nice. In my opinion, at least. Now I'm trying to think, what are other types? Pitch bends can pretty much limitless if you figure out how to do them. There's end note transitions I can talk about. Like with this, when sliding down, one thing that sometimes is good is to slide up. Let me get rid of this curve type. That will create the last note to start going up, and then the second note following it to have that sharp spike-like sound. It doesn't really sound pleasant in this, because all these pitch bends are really screwing around. You get the idea of that. And then it's sometimes nice to do the opposite. And I guess one final thing to quickly go over is at the end of phrases, sometimes the notes go up or down in a slightly quiet manner. It's hard to describe. I think they sound better if you do a slight envelop fade off, because then they're not so loud and obvious. But if it suddenly goes down or suddenly goes up, let me just show what they sound like. You can hear very slightly, maybe, that there is a slight change of tone at the end of the note if you do that kind of pitch bend. And of course use envelopes to taper it off a little bit and make it less extreme. Those can really help if, like, let's say you wanted to have the next note in the next phrase have a sharp start at the very beginning of it. It'd help complete that phrase a little bit if the previous note in the last phrase ended in a sharp upwards, because then it'd feel like you were just stopping for a moment to continue on, if that makes any sense at all. Now, I think for the most part, I've gone over the majority of pitch bend types. I guess one other thing is, you can technically make your own vibrato by just using pitch bends. I've actually done it once or twice where the automatic vibrato wouldn't do what I wanted it to do. And let's say in a song, the vibrato goes slow, then speeds up. UTAU can't do that. UTAU only gives you one speed for vibrato automatically. This tempo is too fast and the notes are too short to really show that off. But it's something that could be done if there is a song with that kind of situation. So, all in all, pitch bending is experimentation, but if you want to accomplish a certain kind of sound and I've showed you how to accomplish it, hey, I've done my goal. Hope this helped you learn a little bit more about different pitch bend types. Thanks for watching.